Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host, where today we are talking UFC Atlanta, headlined by Joaquin Buckley and Kamaru Usman. We're going to be breaking down four plays like we always do on the show. And last weekend was a great weekend, and mainly us because we did hit our 5% max bet play. We cashed in last weekend for clients, but also the fact that I was at the event at UFC 316 was an absolutely awesome event. Great to always win when you're at the event. Always feels a little bit better, but saw some awesome fights and was really having a great time there. Seats were amazing. And again, if you have not been to a UFC pay-per-view, you need to get to one. You need to figure that out. But with that being said, we're going to talk about this weekend coming up. Excited about it. If you want to become a client, link down below. I do have 3 plays up right now. 2 of them are at plus money. So like the spots that I'm in, we'll be adding to that as we get closer to fight night. And with that being said, dive into the comment section if you want to agree or disagree. Also, do hit the like button. Always appreciate that, helping out the algorithm a little bit here. And then let's dive into the main event of the evening between Joaquin Buckley and Kamaru Usman. Now, you've got Buckley here. He is minus 265. And the comeback here on Usman, he is plus 200. Now, when you're looking at Usman here, we know what we're getting from this guy, right? He's a high-level wrestler, former champion. He's going to look for those takedowns. He's going to look for that control time. And he's going to rinse and repeat with that. That's really, how he's been able to find a lot of success here. He averages 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. And he's going to push that kind of pace there. He's going to look to foot stomp you a little bit when he cage pushes you and really look to try to win positionally and control the rounds, bank the rounds. And that's how he has found a lot of success over his career. He is coming off 3 straight losses, but we will talk about that in a second. Now, the other part about this is the fact that he is 38 years old. And, Father Time is undefeated. It's a tough spot here that he is in. And clearly, to me, this is a point where, you're just starting to see the decline with Usman. And I think there were multiple ways that we have kind of seen this overall. And I think that you first look at it that, in that first fight with, Leon Edwards was a spot where I didn't think it was a great performance for him. Even though he was winning the fight against Edwards in that first fight, I didn't think he looked that great overall. Then he ends up getting the head kick heard around the world, gets knocked out in the 5th. And I think that it really escalated some of the decline, I think, for him also, getting that shot, taking that kind of shot late in his career overall. And even prior to that fight in the Colby Covington fight, I did not really like what I saw there. I thought he was slowing down a little bit. I thought that he, wasn't really as explosive as he used to be. But over even more was his second fight against Leon Edwards. And I thought that was not a good look. He just looked very slow, less explosive. He wasn't really able to have that explosiveness to look for those takedowns, to get that control time, to dominate in that wrestling as he used to do. And I think there's, a point in your career that's going to be, you're going to see those declines at 38 years old. But also the big issue here is that he has had bad knees for most of his career. And that is something that, has been talked about, and he's openly talked about over the last few years. So this isn't even something that's as a recent thing. Oh, he's getting older. Maybe now, there's problems with his knees. He's had issues with these knees. So it's only going to get worse at this point in his career. It's not going to get better. It's not all of a sudden going to, go away. It's something he's going to have to continually deal with. And now he's about to face Joaquin Buckley, who is now entering his prime and on an absolute tear right now. 6 straight wins, looking fantastic overall. And one of the things that I thought really helped Buckley in this spot, or really helped in his career, is the fact that, he moved down from 185 pounds down to 170. And I think that really helped him here. He was he's a big guy. He's got that big frame, and he was trying to really, go up with these big guys, and he was going to go with these guys in 185 that are cramming themselves down to that division while he was kind of trying to build himself up. I think he made a great career move by deciding to go down to 170, and with that move, I think he has really looked absolutely fantastic. And you also look at the fact that his frame is big, but he has kept the explosiveness, the power. And those are the things that really have kind of separated him since he's, been on this run and has looked absolutely great. And I think the one thing here you got to look at is the fight against Wonderboy Thompson. I thought that was a great fight for him overall. Wonderboy, who's really tough. His footwork is incredible. He's got great distance management. He's hard to really get takedowns on, as well as just stand in front and throw with him. And the fact that, yes, Wonder Boy was outlanding him, finding the range, which he does with everybody. But the fact that, Buckley was able to knock him out, I thought is just, again, it's showing the fact that he does have those fast hands. He is going to be able to spark out a couple people when it comes to this division here. He's got 6 wins, 4 by finish. He's a guy that's going to be looking for those finishes. And I think that's where he finds a lot of success here. You also even look where, against Nursultan Rizabouyev, who, is a guy that I think is, some people think, a little low about this guy, but I think that his frame and his length is a problem for a lot of people in the division. He does have some power, but the thing about there that I liked is the fact that Buckley fought to a good strategy. He didn't just say, hey, let me try to knock this guy out. Let me just bully forward. And these are the things that he used to do. He used to kind of, and when he was more losing before this streak, he would just come forward, throw big shots. He would believe in his explosive power, but it was very easy to kind of, he was telegraphing them. People saw these combinations coming his way. If he's not mixing it in, disguising it behind certain things, putting in some takedowns. And here, that's what he did against Rizabouyev. He said, I'm not going to just try to, strike and try to win it that way. Let me mix in. He was 4 for 4 on takedowns, showed a really great fight IQ, and did what he needed to do to get the victory. And I think that's really important for him, especially as he continues to get better and kind of grow within the UFC and really have a shot off of this win as really starting to talk about title contentions. But at this point, I think Buckley is the better fighter everywhere. I know that Usman, and we want to remember the great days of him, the knockout on Jorge Masvidal and Masvidal, when we had this beef with him, Masvidal's a glorified journeyman. Let's just be real kind of what it is. He's, he is not really, has never really been anything. And you got to kind of knock that down a peg a little bit. But I think that this is a spot here where the defensive wrestling of Buckley, I think, is going to be good here. I think he's going to have the strength, physicality to kind of create the space. Even when he's been taken down, he's had the ability to kind of scramble, get back to his feet. And I think he can offensive wrestle here too, just to mix it up on Usman, just to kind of wear on him a little bit. That's how much I think that Buckley believes in his wrestling and will find the opportunities. But if this does play out on the feet, he's got the faster hands, better technically, better combinations, the harder hitter between the two, 7-year age gap. I think a lot really goes here with Buckley. So in this spot here in a 5-round fight, I think Buckley does find the chin of Usman. I think in this spot here, he's minus 265. The KO is plus 140. I really like that number in a 5-round fight. I think that he's going to want to put a stamp on Usman in this fight and look for that, look to start calling out some title opportunities here. I do like Buckley. I do like the knockout, and I'm going the plus 140 number. Next one here we're going to talk about is Jose Ochoa. He is minus 196. And the comeback here, we've got Cody Durden. He is plus 150. Now, this line did open up minus 125 for Ochoa. It got steamed all the way up to a 2-1 favorite here. And I do find this line movement really interesting here because, you've got Ochoa here that is a guy that came into the UFC, lost his UFC debut. Now he's coming in against a UFC veteran. And he's a large favorite, a sizable favorite here. So I think it's interesting here. And, yes, he went out there and in his UFC debut against Loner Kavanaugh, who, definitely seems to be, have the goods, looks like he's, a solid striker. But that's the thing. He's primarily a striker. It didn't really offer some of the things that really Durden's going to offer in this fight. But, not only do you look at the fact that, you have Ochoa, who is a guy that, lost his UFC debut, but prior to that, really fought low-level guys. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Strength of schedule is really favoring Durden in this spot. You look at some of the guys he's faced, Charles Johnson, Muhammad Makayev, Jake Hadley, he's even losing to high-level guys, Tajir Ulanbekov, Joshua Van, even the Bruno Silva fight where he was knocked out, but that was a fight he was winning up until he wasn't. Again, these are higher level guys than anything that Ochoa has really had to face. And prior to the UFC and that Loner Kavanaugh fight, I mean, if you just look at the records of some of these guys that Ochoa fought, I mean, he fought guys, his last 4 fights was 4-5 record, a 3-4 record, a 7-1, and a 2-7. Now, again, he's young. I understand it. He's not going to be facing high-level guys. But this, to me, is a big step up in a tougher situation because I think that the biggest issue here for Ochoa is this is going to be the best wrestler he has seen in his career. And the Loner Kavanaugh fight didn't work out for him because, it was a striker versus striker, and, it played out on the feet. And Kavanaugh, I think, again, quick hand speed, a lot of good things that he does do. Here, Durden can mix it up, can really dictate the pace. He's going to be that pressure wrestler who's going to come forward, who's going to have that smothering pressure, who's going to look to take you down, who's going to chain wrestle, who's going to stay on you. And I think that's going to be a tough thing for a kid that probably hasn't had to face anything like that in his career. And now you're facing a guy that has definitely faced far level opportunity opponents that you have seen Ochoa have. So I think that's going to play a factor. And the threat of takedowns, I think also, it's also going to be tough for Ochoa to really plant and throw. And I think that's going to worry him a lot. He could be on the back foot a little bit. He likes to come forward. He can be aggressive, but I think the aggressiveness could play into Durden timing well-timed takedowns, looking for control time. And I do think he can win positionally. I think that's going to be important here for him to bank those early rounds, get the control time, wear on Ochoa a little bit. You know that Durden can slow down as the fight kind of wears on. But I do think he can find opportunities in the first 2 rounds to really control the action, bank rounds, and get the job done. So I think this is a dog or pass spot in this spot here. You got a guy who's facing, a grizzled vet in Durden, who's tough, who's going to come forward. And at plus money, I got to go Cody Durden here. So I'm going Cody Durden plus 150 to get the job done. Next fight here we're going to talk about is Loosa minus 130 against Phil Rowe plus 110. Now, both these fighters definitely have a little bit of a mixed bag when they're talking about their success rate in the UFC. You've got Loosa 2-3-1 in the UFC. You've got Rowe, who's 4-3 in the UFC. But when you're looking at just the competition level again, definitely a lot different. When you're looking at who these guys have faced, I think Rowe has faced very low level guys overall, especially his wins, beating Jason Witt, Orion Cosey. These guys are just not UFC caliber. Nico Price, who's just a fun fighter, but, gets sparked out a lot. And then you've got Loosa, who definitely has fought the higher level guys. He beat Reese McKee, beat AJ Fletcher, but he did fight current champion Jack Della Maddalena, Brian Battle, who is definitely a savage and is continuing to look better and better. And even Gabriel Bonfim. I mean, these guys are really high-level guys for Loosa, who came into the UFC, didn't have many fights, but has fought some really strong opponents. And now he's about to face Rowe. Now, Rowe is a guy that has those physical advantages. And, the length, the reach, all the height, he has those things. He's just terrible at using them. He just doesn't use the reach very well at all. He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage, a 5-inch height advantage here. He's that long, lanky striker. And he does have some good boxing at times. He can throw some nice combinations overall, but his distance management is bad. And he allows opponents to kind of get inside the reach, get in tight, look for, clinching and control. And I do think that that's kind of where this fight could possibly go here. Smaller opponents, because Rope's, he's pretty much always the longer, bigger guy. But, most of the opponents are able to cut that distance and have been smaller than him. So again, this is something that Rowe has not been able to correct here. I think the other part here in an area that I think is an absolute vulnerability for Rowe is the takedown defense. And I think that's where Loosa goes with this. And I think he goes with this pretty quickly. I think out the gate here, not wanting to have to deal with the reach and the length of Rowe. And you've got Rowe here. He's got a 56% takedown defense rate, not the greatest, but the issue here is he lacks a lot of physicality. And I think that's really where you can see Loosa have some success here with having the strength advantage, with being able to bully him down a little bit. And I do think that Loosa is going to struggle with that. Now, the other part here is the fact that Loosa has gone to the takedowns. He really has started to push that kind of pace a little bit here. And, whether it works or it doesn't work, I think in this spot here, it can work. And, 12 takedowns over the last 4 fights. It is a path for him here that he can look to push that wrestling pace, find that success, win positionally, land some ground and pound. And I think that's going to help him a lot here. And I think he can mix up the attacks a lot better overall here. And one of the other things that I do like about his stand-up game is the leg kicks. And I think those are going to be available to him here, where Rowe is, again, he's got these long, lanky legs. I think that's where you're going to see Loosa chop away, find opportunities and mix it in. And once he starts worrying about that, I think that's where he starts adding in the takedowns, mix it up a little bit, keep Rowe off balance. And that's where he can find success. But I think he's the better athlete. He's, better cardio, better combination, maybe combinations, but the harder hitter. And I do think that he can get those takedowns, crash the pocket, get his hands on Rowe, take him down. And I think that's really where this goes here. It could be an ugly fight overall. But I do think that, him being the more durable guy as well, and Loosa, where he has never been finished in his UFC career, I think that's kind of one of the outs, really, or really the only out, I think, for Rowe, because Rowe is also extremely low volume, just always low volume. And again, Loosa can control the action, can probably push out the more volume and win positionally and not get knocked out. I think this is Loosa here, especially at this number. Minus 130 is a pretty good price. It came in a little bit. I agree that this is the side here. So I'm taking Loosa to get the job done. Next one here and last one here we're going to talk about is Rodolfo Bellato. He is minus 375. In the comeback here, we've got Paul Craig plus 290. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into this one here. This is a fight that was booked a couple weeks ago, whatever it was, due to Bellato's issues. It's a whole other story. But this is a fight here where you've got Paul Craig, who clearly is another fighter that's aging out on the decline. And it's pretty obvious, I think, at this point here. People like Paul Craig. He's a fan favorite, jiu-jitsu, high level, all of those things. But, at 37 years old, he's 1-5 out of his last 6. His only win is over Andre Muniz, who is not very good at all. And I think this is kind of what an aging out vet kind of looks like here. Plus the UFC, maybe they're trying to push Bellato a little bit here. They're giving, kind of handing him a guy that is just going to, not going to be able to get takedowns. And that's the clear problem here. Now, Bellato is an explosive guy, but he has his own flaws. There's no doubt he is a very flawed fighter. But I think the matchup plays out very well for him in this spot, because Craig is a guy who does have that high-level jiu-jitsu, who is a guy that, this fight gets to the ground. He is absolutely lethal overall, but he has no striking. His striking is very, very basic overall, and he really has no power. So it really plays out very well where Bellato is a very hard hitter. He's going to throw heavy punches. He's going to throw heavy combinations. He's going to march forward. And that really, I think, sets up, some bad things probably for Paul Craig. And the other thing here is Paul Craig is just, we have not seen him elevate. It's been, I don't even know, actually, maybe since he's entered the UFC, I don't really know, but you're not really seeing anything added. He has not really added any tools. He's the same guy, can't get takedowns, high level jujitsu. His striking is very, very simple. And, you look at a guy like, obviously is very different, but you look at a guy like, Buckley, you're seeing the elevation. You're seeing him add things. You're seeing where he was just a guy that's explosive, throwing big hooks. Now he's added things. He's, given his opponent different looks. Paul Craig at 37 is not going to be adding anything at this particular point here. And, now he's coming back up to 205. I think that's probably a bad thing as well for him. But at the end of his career, probably doesn't want to have to do as much of the weight cutting that he used to do. So I think that's kind of how that plays out. But, Craig does have the grappling, but he doesn't have the wrestling. And that, again, plays into Bellato here, where Bellato is going to have that physicality. He's going to have that strength. I think he's going to have no problem at all defending any type of takedown here. And I think that also where he's looking to cut distance and come forward, I think that's where Bellato lands really heavy. And you've got Craig here, who has 9 losses, 5 are by knockout. And that's where I'm going with this play here. I think that this is going to be a knockout. I don't really see Craig finding any type of success. I don't see this getting to the scorecards as well here. I think that Bellato comes forward, not going to be worried about any type of power or anything coming his way from Paul Craig. And I do think he finds the success and gets that knockout. So getting off the minus 375 number, we've got Bellato by KO sitting around minus 140, minus 150. I think it's a good number and a very likely outcome. So there you have it for my plays for UFC Atlanta. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Again, do have 3 plays in there, 2 at plus money. We'll be adding to it. And hopefully we can get another cash weekend. And don't forget to like the video. All right. And let's cash.